Yeah, I wanted to go over with you some of the things that are included in this collection of due process research that I did. One of the things that I started on was what I would consider to be a memorandum or possibly a letter, where I took and started to pare down these quotes into the absolute essential points that I wanted to make. And, part of what this sounds like for more than a century, the central meaning of procedural due process has been clear. Parties whose rights are to be affected are entitled to be heard, and an opportunity to be heard must be granted at a meaningful time and in a meaningful manner. And there's a case cite here. These essential constitutional processes may not be eroded. The requirement of a meaningful opportunity to be heard must be protected against denial. Another case cite. The law recognizes the importance of organized society, that these procedural due process rights be scrupulously observed. Another case cite. The right to procedural due process is absolute in the sense it does not depend upon the merits of the claimant's substantive assertions. Prohibition against the deprivation of property without due process of law reflects the high value embedded in a constitutional political history that we place on a person's right to enjoy what is his, free of governmental interference. And that's another case cite. So these are things that, for a lot of you, the main reason that you even study law in the first place has to do with the IRS. And as you can tell, all of these quotes are having to do with the IRS. Now, the important reason that we need to know these things is because Section 1203 of the Restructuring Reform Act in 1998 told IRS people that if they deprived you of a constitutional right, they'd lose their job. So that comes down to a little game of chicken. Who knows constitutional rights better? If you know it better than they do, then you can have a legitimate threat of their job hanging over their head at all times. Some of you have gone to due process hearings going back to when they first became available back in 1998 and found out that they were nothing more than a sham. Part of what's included in this memorandum are quotes like this. A pro forma opportunity to be heard will not do. And that's the U.S. Supreme Court talking. The right to a hearing embraces the right to present evidence. Absence of full, fair, potentially effective opportunity to defend against the state's charges, right to a hearing would be but a barren one. Process, which is a mere gesture, is not due process. The process afforded must be more than a sham or pretense. So the concept would be it's not enough for you to make a bald assertion that you felt like your rights were violated. It's a whole nother thing to have quotes like these backed up with Supreme Court citations. It's like the court is talking for you. I went and looked up the definition of pro forma, a term applied to practices or documents that are done as a pure formality, perfunctory, or to seek to satisfy the minimum requirements or conform to a convention or doctrine. Does that sound like a due process hearing? It does. A collection due process hearing. It does to me. Here's a good quote that you could use. A purpose of procedural due process is to convey to the individual a feeling that the government has dealt with him fairly, as well as to minimize the risk of mistaken deprivations of protected interests. And that's a U.S. Supreme Court case, a majority opinion. How about this one? The purpose of a written constitution, its Bill of Rights, is to ensure that certain principles will not be sacrificed to expediency. Does that sound like the IRS or what? Expediency. So these quotes were me just trying to narrow it down to the absolute essentials. There's a total of 34.5 pages of these, and it would take you a long time to dig these all out. And instead of digging them out, you can focus on memorizing them and make them part of your repertoire when you're dealing with the IRS.